Let's take a look at one possible solution to this challenge. We'll look at the page first. We can see we have all 4 products here. I'll increase the quantity of my fizzy water and add a couple other things. Down here under the state, I have several selections and my new one, Washington State. And selecting that still makes sure that the Estimate Total button is active. So I'll set UPS and click Estimate Total. This looks pretty reasonable. Let's set this to California. Yep, looks good. Slightly less tax for Washington than there is for California here. Great. So it seems to work. Let's look at how it was put together. Here in my index.html file, I'm going to use Command F or Control F on Windows or Linux to find the mineral water. Actually, I'm going to search for fizzy. There we go. That jumps me right to where I need to go. And I've followed the same structure of the HTML for the other products exactly. So it all gets laid out very nicely. Product name, little description, here's the price, and I set a unique ID both on the label field and on the number input, text Q water. Also added the state here to the select box with the abbreviation for Washington right here. And that's all we needed to do on this side. Let's take a look at the script now. So I'm going to scroll down to the Estimate Total function because this is where most of the action lies. Here's my item water variable, which is up here. I'm collecting the value of that field, running it through parseInt and making sure I set a default of 0, adding it to my calculation here with its price of 4, multiplied by the quantity. And now here, I'm checking the shipping state and adding an else if for Washington and setting the tax factor to 1.065 instead of 1.075 to account for 6.5 versus 7.5% tax. And that's it. Everything else stays the same. For a little bit of extra credit I gave myself, I changed the behavior for how the estimate button is disabled. The way it was working before, button estimate.disabled was always being set to true when the page loaded. Now, because of the way browsers work, when you refresh the page, if nothing else changes, the values can be maintained for you. So always disabling this without first checking whether the state was actually chosen or not wasn't helpful. So instead, I broke out this logic that checks the state value and sets the disabled property accordingly into its own little helper function, which is called when that change event fires, but is also called right when the page is first loaded. So I get the same behavior used twice, but only defined in one place. And as a result, I have some better user experience here. And that's it. The challenge is done. Now we can move on to some other topics.